Part 29. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 281. Chapter 281. The male protagonist is angry. After Huo Linyuan brought Lan Min back to the Huo family, he threw her to the ground. He loosened his tie. Lan Min, what on earth do you want to do? Don't you think the trouble you are causing is not enough? Lan Min's hand was in great pain at first, but after being thrown so hard, his hand hurt even more. Huo Linyuan didn't hear Lan Min's reply, so he stretched out his hand and pulled her up from the ground. What the do you think about that, Li Baikan? Are you in love with Li Baikan? Do you want to betray me? Linyuan Lan Min squeezed out two words with all his strength. Have you forgotten that you are my woman? Even if you die, you can only be my woman at this moment. Huo Linyuan's eyes were scarlet. When he was at the Li family, Huo Linyuan was very angry. He has not been forced into the state for a long time. But it was Li Baikan's territory at that time. Although the Li family had been inferior to the Huo family in recent years, he could not act rashly. Being forced to use up one's own woman's hand is simply a shame and humiliation. I just regard Baikan as my elder brother. Lan Min burst into tears. Brother, haha, do you think I'm stupid? Huo Linyuan slapped her immediately. Brother, if you want to crawl to him so eagerly, the affairs of other people's husband and wife are none of your business. You have always known that I am the most important person. What I hate is that you come into contact with him. I didn't care about it before, but now Li Baikan doesn't care about you at all, and you still go up to the pole to stick to him. Don't forget, you are my Huo Linyuan's woman. You must know that Lan Min's health is not good to begin with. In this case, she immediately felt severe pain in her chest and then fainted. Then I went directly to the ICU of the hospital. Lu Jing was so upset when he heard the news. When they learned about Lan Min's situation at this moment, they were all shocked. Then he directly asked Huo Linyuan, what on earth did you do? Why did you torment Min'er like this when I was on a business trip for a while? Are you able to take care of Min'er? If you can't, then you can't. Give it to me, then I will definitely take good care of you. The next moment, Huo Linyuan's fist appeared directly on Lu Jing's face. You must know that Huo Linyuan is not in a good mood now. Now that Lu Jing has appeared, it's time to vent his anger. Lu Jing covered his face. Huo Linyuan, just wait for me. I will arrange for the best martial arts coach to teach me as soon as I get back. I will definitely beat you to the ground. Then I'll wait for you to come. Huo Linyuan just said a word and left. Lu Jing looked at Huo Linyuan's back and clenched his hands tightly into fists. He secretly swore in his heart. Ouch, ouch, it hurts, my cheek. Why does Huo Linyuan go so far every time? He always slaps my handsome face. He is just jealous of my handsome face and is worried that he will fall in love with me. Lu Jing rubbed his face with his hands, and by chance, he saw that his subordinates were still smiling. Lu Jing's heart suddenly became angry. What are you laughing at? You actually saw my young master's joke. Do you not want to live anymore? If you don't want to live anymore, then this young master will send you to see the king of hell in a minute. The men immediately bowed their heads and shut up. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 282. Chapter 282. The mean-tongued Lu Jing. However, Lu Jing realized something when he came back to his senses. Now, Huo Linyuan. Li Baikan is not here. You must know that when a woman is most vulnerable, it is the best time to win her heart. God finally began to favor him. When Lan Min opened his eyes and saw Lu Jing standing guard next to him, his first reaction was to cry. Because in the past, Li Baikan would stay by her side and ask for help in various ways, but that was no longer the case now. Jianur, don't cry. There is something wrong with that kidney. If you are crying, that kidney may not last long. It may not take long before it burps. It's not worth it, Lu Jing immediately said with concern. Baikan, have you been here? Lan Min still couldn't help but ask. She still had some hope in her heart. What if Li Baikan was just pretending to be angry that she didn't choose him? You must know that Li Baikan once cared about her so much, and he couldn't ignore her like this. Lu Jing, who had been staying by Lan Min's side, changed his expression, and immediately said angrily, "No, my wife and children are hot on the bed, what are you doing here? I am the only one who will stay by your side no matter what happens." These words directly shattered Lan Min's hopes. "I really don't know what you are thinking. Didn't you think Baikan pestered you before and caused misunderstandings between you and Huo Linyuan? Now they don't pester you anymore. What are you doing?" Lan Min braced himself. "I'm worried that Sunian deceived him. That Sunian is not a good woman, Jianur, although you are kind, you are wrong about this matter, Sunian, but his old man, I have watched her since she was a child. It is said that the diapers she used to buy when she was a child were all paid for by the old man. She is exactly the daughter-in-law tailor-made for Li Baikan by the old man of the Li family. According to Mr. Li's temperament, if there is really something wrong with this Sunian, then Sunian's life not until now. A marriage without love will not be happy," Lan Ren said with all his strength. "Lu Jing, how do you know that people don't have love? And you and Li Baikan have known each other for so many years, how do you know that they don't have love?" Lu Jing sighed deeply and said seriously, "Actually, you don't understand. Li Baikan and Huo Linyuan arranged their marriages themselves. Their marriages are all about interests. Even if they take 10,000 steps back, those families are all about good women who can give birth to good heirs. It's not like my family. It's all up to me." He, now Lu Jing feels that he is really a little genius, and he directly discredited two love rivals with one sentence. There are many smart people like him, Mr. Lu, in this world. Children born from a loveless marriage are unhappy. Lu Jing, what can you do? Everyone has a successor to the throne, so you can't let them lose their incest. I'm still saying the same thing, how do you know that he doesn't have love? You don't love Li Baikan anyway. You don't care about him. You take good care of your body. Even if Li Baikan suffers, it's his own business." Lu Jing covered Lan Min with a quilt with a cold face. "What kind of loss can that man Li Baikan suffer? Isn't it just a loss of some money? Like me, he has the most indispensable thing in his life." Lan Min was still feeling uncomfortable, but after Lu Jing finished speaking, she couldn't say a word. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 283. Chapter 283. It's not shy, it's really not shy. Lan Min's experience. All the news reached Sunian. When Sunian heard that Huo Linyuan actually hit Lan Min, his eyes couldn't help but show disdain. Well, in this Mary Sue novel, the male protagonist who is a domineering president has scenes of beating women. This kind of novel is called forced love, haha, otherwise it is called a Mary Sue novel. Sunian then looked at Li Baikan. I have to admit that although this guy is a bit hateful, he has no habit of hitting women. Maybe this guy is the second male lead in Baiyu Eguang. Hey, I hope he can whip me hard when we have in bed. Li Baikan was drinking water when he heard this, and he almost choked to death. Even after all this time, he still couldn't stand Sunian's random thoughts. She is also a girl after all. And when Li Baikan adjusted his emotions and looked over, he actually saw Sunian's face was serious. This made Li Baikan a little bit unable to sit still. He got up and planned to leave and go out for a walk. It's a pity that this man won't let me touch him, and I didn't experience many men in my previous life. It's more or less a pity. I'll try to play with a few more men in this life. After all, rebirth is to make up for the regrets of the past. Lee Baiken stopped. Yes, generally rebirth stories are about the heroine making up for the regrets she had before after being reborn. I really didn't have many regrets in my previous life. If I were to count them, then I only had not experienced much male sex. Well, after I give birth to Mo, in addition to killing the male and female protagonists randomly, I also need to make up for the male lust. It is best to make up for the male in the previous life. Lee Baiken, make up for male lust. At this moment, Lee Baiken had a formulaic smile on his face. Sunian retracted his thoughts. I found that Lee Baiken had been standing still, as if someone had cast a restraining spell on him. Sunian asked curiously, Baiken, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Standing inexplicably, it must be uncomfortable. He, although he is uncomfortable, I am indeed a little happy, but now is my chance to show off. Sunian stood up immediately and came to Lee Baiken's side. Where do you feel uncomfortable, Baiken? If you really feel uncomfortable, then you must tell me. Looking at the culprit, Lee Baiken couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, Sunian stood up on tiptoes and kissed Lee Baiken on the cheek. It doesn't matter if you don't want to say it, just kiss him. Hey, I'm so smart. I took advantage of Lee Baiken and showed it off. Lee Baiken reached out and took the person into his arms, and then sighed helplessly. This sigh made Sunian even more confused. Okay, why are you sighing? Could it be that something happened again? When Sunian just thought of this, Lee Baiken's voice rang in her ears. Hey, if I knew that kissing you wouldn't hurt, then I wouldn't have to take so many medicines before. At this point, Lee Baiken kissed Sunian the face. Sunian. Okay, although Sunian doesn't really want to admit it. But after hearing Lee Baiken's words, she, who has always been so shameless, felt her cheeks getting a little warm. It's not shy, it's really not shy. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 284. Chapter 284. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Obviously Sunian underestimated the survival ability of the heroine Lan Min. Within a few days, she found out that Lan Min was working in the ward so that Huo Group could get this project. How did Sunian know? HD camera. Reported. The confidant of the president of Huo Group, endured physical discomfort and worked in the ward for the sake of love. Sunian had to sigh. This is really an enviable love. After sighing, he immediately looked at Josu. Josu, can you check the whereabouts of Huo Linyuan's fiancé for me? Okay, Madam. Josu replied respectfully. Sunian tapped the table casually. At such a critical moment, if she doesn't cause trouble, then she is not a vicious female supporting character. That's right, in every Mary Sue novel, the male protagonist has a perfect fiancé. Generally, the author makes the fiancé very perfect, but the male protagonist is stupid and feels that he has no feelings for the perfect fiancé. Same setting as Lee Baiken. Anyway, wild boars cannot eat fine chaff. Sunian approached the restaurant. Looking at the woman sitting by the window, every movement of the woman is elegant. She is casually admiring the scenery of the street outside, but this nonchalance also makes her a perfect scenery in the eyes of others. Miss Sun, long time no see. Sunian sat opposite the woman. Huo Linyuan's fiancé Sun Ying-er. The Sun family is also a big family. Originally, the marriage between the Huo and Sun families was to bring the Huo family to a higher level and to annex the Li family. However, because Huo Linyuan fell in love with Lan Min, the alliance between the two families was in danger. But this Sun Ying threatened Huo Linyuan with marriage and asked him to marry her. This has become an obstacle to the love between the male and female protagonists. The male and female protagonists broke through these restrictions and finally reached a perfect ending. From a certain point of view, she has the same setting as Sun Ying. If this is the case, why not form an alliance and create trouble for the heroine? Although Sun Yan's first goal now is to give birth to Mo Bao, given Li Baikan's virtue, she still wants to do something else. After all, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Sun Ying was a little surprised when Sun Yan appeared. "Miss Su, what do you want to see me for?" "I want to cooperate." Sun Ying picked up the coffee and said, "Miss Su, you are really a bit direct." Sun Yan took the menu handed over by the waiter. "The enemy of my enemy is a friend. I think we are friends, and now that our men are obsessed with the same woman, I think we should stand together." "Really, I heard that you and Mr. Li have a good relationship as husband and wife." Sun Ying stirred the coffee cup. Sun Yan looked at the menu. After all, this kidney of mine can save his sweetheart. Let alone playing tricks, it can be used for other purposes. When Sun Ying heard this, her face suddenly became more angry. "It's really hateful. Miss Sun, I have no time to talk nonsense with you now. Lan Min is our common enemy. If I don't do anything, my life may be ruined. This is why I won't beat around the bush." Li Baikan is sneezing crazily in the office at the moment. However, Sun Ying was worthy of being a daughter of a well-known family, and she quickly recovered her emotions. "Miss Su is indeed a bit direct, and she also revealed her trump card, but if I cooperate with you, what can I get? Is it that I can make people happy? Should I marry Huo Linyuan? This condition is not too attractive to me. After all, if I really want to, I can definitely do it." "I know this." Sun Yan ordered the meal and returned the menu to the waiter. "What if I give you another idea, Miss Sun?" End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 285. Chapter 285, A Man of Temperament. These words aroused Sun Ying's interest. Sun Yan glanced at her and continued, "What if you change your mind and turn Huo Linyuan into a plaything in your hands? For example." Sun Yan felt that if Sun Ying could change her thinking and cooperate with herself, she would be better off. Then maybe this life will be more fun. "Why do you want to get Huo Linyuan? Isn't it not good to get the entire Huo family? Take the power from him and leave him with nothing. They don't want love, just give him pure love. When the time comes, take Huo Linyuan's money. Just find a man who looks like him, but if that doesn't work, you can use his money to find a similar man through post-plastic surgery." These words made Sun Ying choke. This is really a bit unbelievable. I know I am a bit bold when I say this now, but Huo Linyuan is the proud man of heaven. Think about it, what will happen if that time comes? If Huo Linyuan has nothing, how can he bear it? Will I surrender to you obediently? You mean I asked her to have a child? Sun Ying came to her senses and sneered. What you said is simple, that man doesn't even want me to touch him. So I'm here to cooperate with you. Sun Ying paused. Sun Yan took the coffee from the waiter's hand, then took a sip before saying slowly, "Now that woman, in order to make my husband think she is better than me, I can pay any price now. You go find that woman," he said. "As long as Huo Linyuan gives you a child, you can help Huo Linyuan unconditionally and guarantee that she will find a way." At such a critical moment, the female protagonist is willing to suffer for the male protagonist's career. Tisk, 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 it sounds really touching. This is okay. It's okay if you can't. If you go ahead and say it, it can also affect the woman's body. In this case, she won't live long. Do you think Huo Linyuan would die for such a woman? If he really died for his love, once don't you feel good that all the people who hurt you are dead, Sun didn't come here for no reason. In the previous life, Sun Ying turned around and left immediately after confirming that Huo Linyuan and her were impossible. The more chic you are, the more chic you are. Indicates that this woman is a temperamental person. Then let me give it a try. Sun Ying was indeed moved. Sun Yan installed a camera on Sun Ying's body because it was convenient for Sun Ying to use as a reference. Be able to see what Sun Ying encounters in real time. As Sun Ying walked into the ward, she saw Lan Min's pale face. Sun Yan felt that if Li Baikan saw such a pale face, he might be heartbroken to death. "Miss Sun, what's the matter with you?" Lan Min was obviously a little panicked when he saw Sun Ying. Sun Yan felt that Lan Min's expression now was really a bit panicked when the mistress was suddenly caught by the principal. Furthermore, Sun Yan felt that the heroine was really looking for someone to choose from. You should know that when Lan Zhen saw her, he looked righteous and awe-inspiring, but he didn't flinch at all. "Why, can't I come?" Sun Ying walked to Lan Min's side. "After all, your life is hanging by a thread right now. No matter what the reason is, I have to come and have a look. After all, coming here will help you. It's not something difficult." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 286. Chapter 286, This Lanzi is really a one-hit wonder. Although Lan Min's hand has been connected, she has been experiencing severe pain at the slightest movement in the past few days. And the doctor said it. Be very careful these days, otherwise, you may get the root cause of the disease, which will affect the rest of your life. Sun Ying's coming here was definitely not just for a simple visit, which made Lan Min shrink back without thinking. But the hospital bed is so big, how far can Lan Zhen shrink into? Lin Yuan hasn't come here to take care of you these days, right? When Lan Min heard this, his face darkened. She had not seen Huo Linyuan since she woke up, and she also found out from Lu Jing that Huo Linyuan left on the day of her operation. When he thought of this, Lan Min felt aggrieved. How many times has she told Huo Linyuan that she and Baikan have no other problems at all? She just regards Baikan as her brother. Why does Huo Linyuan still not believe it? You may not know what kind of losses you have caused to the Huo family because of your misbehavior these days. Now there is a financial problem in the Huo group. If Huo Linyuan doesn't handle it well, then the Huo group may change owners. These words made Lan Min instantly lose his composure. What are you talking about? There's something wrong with the Huo family. Lan Min breathed a sigh of relief after saying this, and even laughed. I knew Lin Yuan couldn't ignore me for so long, not when I was feeling so uncomfortable. Regardless of me, it turns out there is something important. As he spoke, tears came down. It feels a bit like crying with joy. Sun Ying Sun Yan. This woman is really not an ordinary love brain. Does the boss like this one? Sun Yan couldn't help but subconsciously complain. Sun Ying heard these words in the earphones and agreed a little. It took about 5 minutes for Lan Min to come back to his senses and look at Sun Ying again. What did you say? What problem did Lin Yuan encounter? What happened to him? No, I want to go find him now. Sun Yan in the headphones, I bet this woman will fall down soon. The next moment, Lan Min fell to the ground. Sun Ying Then Sun Yan said smugly, Hey, Miss Sun, I know you are just trying to cooperate with me now, but you see, I know this Lan person well, so if you cooperate with me, you will be invincible. Sun Ying was almost amused. At this time, Lan Min crawled up to Sun Ying. Miss Sun, you must have a way to come here, you must have a way, as long as you can help Lin Yuan, then I am willing to do anything. I want a child. These words made Lan Min's body stiffen immediately. Now the Huo family's economy is in crisis. If there is no large-scale capital injection, then the Huo family may have an unprecedented crisis. This crisis may make Huo Linyuan fall directly from that position. Lan Min, you have done Lin Yuan as a woman who has been with Yuan for so long, you should know what it would be like if Lin Yuan fell from that position. Lan Yan, Miss Sun, you can't be so cruel. If parents have no feelings, then the children born will definitely not be happy. Miss Sun, do you want your children to be unhappy? I'm just providing a choice. If you think it's not possible, just pretend I didn't mention it. Sunian on the other end of the phone couldn't help but sneered. This laner is really one of a kind and can be used all over the world. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 287. Chapter 287. The heroine actually called the wrong name. If you don't agree, then just wait for Huo Linyuan to fall from a high place. Then, you can be a couple with only love. I am here to congratulate you in advance. Congratulations on your ability to break through the world and break through money, become a couple of immortals, Sunian said casually. Sun Ying-er repeated obediently. After Sunian said, Miss Sun, you care too much about men, as if men are a necessity. Look at Lan Min's face. He keeps saying that love is above all else. After you say this, you will die with your parents just as ugly. Sun Ying-er looked at Lan Min after hearing this. Don't tell me, it really tastes like that. She felt instantly comfortable. Let's go now, don't ink. The more inked you are, the worse the effect will be. Sun Ying-er immediately turned around and walked outside. But after taking a few steps, his legs were hugged. Miss Sun, you can't do this. Didn't you say you love Baiken? You love. That's not right. When did I ever fall in love with Li Baiken? Sun Ying-er asked doubtfully. The scene suddenly became awkward. Sunian over there laughed so hard that he almost fell down. Ha ha ha, what else can you do? The heroine actually called the wrong person. If the hero heard this, Sunian would have been to death. Lan Min also had a headache. She had been struggling with Li Baiken's affairs these days. When she was talking just now, she subconsciously called out Li Baiken's name. It turns out that you don't love Huo Linyuan very much, or you are a spy sent by Li Baiken to confuse Linyuan. Sun Ying-er sneered. No, I'm not a spy sent by Baiken. Lan Min subconsciously denied it. Does it matter? If you are, then it will be better and you will be able to make the most correct choice. If not, then congratulations to you. As I said before, congratulations to you for finally getting married. I once said that you are not from the same world as us, but now you are so powerful that you can actually pull Huo Linyuan down. After finishing speaking, Sun Ying-er turned around gracefully. Lan Min wanted to explain something, but seeing Sun Ying-er like this, he couldn't say anything. Waiting for Sun Ying-er to come out of the hospital and return to the coffee shop, she looked at the woman in front of her. At first, Sun Ying-er just had a playful attitude, thinking that there might be more possibilities, but she didn't expect that the moment Lan Min called the wrong name happened. I now somewhat believe in your sincerity in seeking my cooperation. Sunian. Actually, she just wanted to make Lan Ji feel sick. After all, Li Baiken has caused problems with her hands. If Huo Linyuan has another problem, it will be even worse for Lan Min. You must know that the heroine in this kind of Mary Sue novel, the president, is very glass-hearted, so it is enough to make Lan Zhen drink a pot, but she did not expect. Sunian really felt that she had underestimated the level of this novel at this moment. Now she just regretted why Huo Linyuan was not at the scene. If Huo Linyuan saw such a scene at the scene, it would be a sure field. No, it should be more sure field than sure field. This woman, Lan Min, is a typical woman who eats from the bowl and looks at the pot. Even though I have a good relationship with my husband now, Lan Min is still a time bomb that can explode at any time to me, Sunian said with a serious face. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 288. Chapter 288 Men are a necessity of life. Sun Ying-er laughed when she heard this. But Sunian saw the bitterness. Actually, Miss Sun, you have to learn to let go. Your methods and intelligence are not inferior to Huo Linyuan at all. Why are you chasing Huo Linyuan? Men are only necessities in life, but not necessities in life. Use them when you are happy, no, just dump it if you're happy. Sun Ying-er. Necessities. Yes, there is no difference between his work and Ant's scarf. You can use it when you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, no matter how good you are, you won't want to use it. Sunian looked at the woman in front of him. She and her role have already been set. But when she read the novel, she didn't understand why a rich and beautiful female supporting role had to play the protagonist or a supporting role. Well, this kind of novel is indeed written for poor girls like her. When I read the novel, I put myself in my place, thinking that I will be able to meet a rich and handsome man at some point in the future, abandoned by Fume, fall in love with myself, and then give myself happiness. Sun Ying-er immediately slapped the table. Actually, my goal has always been to get Huo Linyuan and get rid of him. Otherwise, how could I be so mean? When Sunian heard this, he immediately felt a flock of crows flying above his head. What's wrong, Miss Su? Sun Ying-er also realized that something was wrong with Sunian. Sunian took a sip of the coffee in front of him. In order to get Huo Linyuan, you used all kinds of methods and finally dumped Huo Linyuan. Then everyone will feel that Lan Min is the one who loves Huo Linyuan the most. They are attracted by you. The vicious women are broken up and finally have a happy ending. Sun Ying-er, why do I sound like the bad guy in a TV series? Sunian, yes. Sun Ying-er, and he seems to have a low IQ. Sunian stopped talking. This made Sun Ying-er feel even more uncomfortable. I understand what you said before. I went to the same school and received the same education as that man Huo Linyuan, and I am also working in my family's company. Management, I used to love this man, but then I fell out of love with him after he got involved with that woman Lan. But you also know that in a family like ours, marriage is something you can't help yourself with. If I go after him, everyone in my family will say that I don't think about the family. Sunian feels quite happy now. At least the setting of her character is that she has no father or mother, and there are not so many bad things. It felt unpleasant to be forced to lick Li Baikan. You are right, a man is a necessity, just an object. Sunian, I have had a lot of contact with you earlier. If I had been in contact with you earlier, I might have figured it out earlier. The two of them really feel like they have met each other too late. The two of them talked a lot. This leads to losing track of time. When Li Baikan came to the coffee shop to pick someone up, as soon as he stepped through the door, he heard Sunian's heartfelt voice. Men are necessities, and they are only used when they should be used. But why do I feel that Li Baikan is a defective product? I can't use it when I want to. Li Baikan. He seemed to know why he sneezed like crazy during the afternoon meeting. It is probably about this little woman. Li Baikan sighed inwardly, and then walked to the table of the two women. You two, it's getting late now, shouldn't it be time to go home? To popularize what I mean, you can use the necessities of life if you want, but just use them. Hee, I want to write about toys, but I can't make it. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, Ro which Jong word. Chapter 289. Chapter 289 Li Baikan, have fun? Sun Ying-er looked at the man in front of her. In order to transplant a kidney for that disgusting woman, I would not hesitate to stay with a woman I don't love. When I thought about this, I had an even less favorable impression of Li Baikan, so after hearing what Li Baikan said, I couldn't help but smile and said, I didn't expect that Mr. Li and his wife have a very good relationship, which makes me a little envious. It's my honor to be the envy of Miss Sunday. I will do better. Li Baikan ignored Sun Ying-er's sarcasm. Sun Ying-er's eyes widened. She really didn't expect that Li Baikan was actually a little proud. But it is indeed a bit late today, because my wife should go home and take medicine. If she really misses the time to take medicine, it will have an impact on her body. Sun Ying-er, who originally wanted to mock Li Baikan, immediately swallowed her mocking words when she heard this. So that's it? Nian should really go back. Let's make a date next time. Sunian's good mood was dispelled because Li Baikan said he should take medicine. She followed Li Baikan depressedly. Why do you need to drink medicine? It's really bitter. Hey, for the sake of Mo Bao, I still have to endure it? After all, many accidents happened after rebirth in this life. If an accident occurs during childbirth, it will be bad. Thinking about it this way, Sunian's mood really improved a lot. But Li Baikan was in a bad mood. He looked at the woman next to him. Even the words she comforted herself were that of that child. Why? At this moment, Sunian next to him looked at Li Baikan. What method should I use to get this man? Hey, does it really have to be drugged? This is a good idea, or I should get some backup. Spare. Li Baikan. What kind of thing should be done, whether it is more times or a longer period of time? Well, let me think about it carefully. Li Baikan's face turned even darker. Because how does Sunian know this difference? Could it be that, Li Baikan doesn't dare to think about it now? He stretched out his hand and took Sunian into his arms. Have fun. I'm not happy. If I leave Baikan for only a moment, I'm not happy either. At this point, Sunian pretended to sigh deeply, but I also know that I can't stay with you all the time. You just have some feelings for me now. If I bother you by your side, then the little flame of our love may be extinguished soon. These love words will move the heart of anyone who is attentive. What a pity for this guy. Just as Sunian was complaining, the man held her hand and put it on her heart. She could clearly feel the strong heartbeat in his chest. There is nothing false about it. This made Sunian feel a little panicked. Just when Sunian was panicking, a sigh sounded in her ears. This sigh is like a feather passing through the tip of my heart. Although it's just itchy, it makes people feel less restrained and more confused. And Li Baikan's voice continued to ring in her ears. Do you feel it? Can you extinguish it like this? The man's deep voice made Sunian turn his head. It cannot be quenched in this way, Li Baikan said, each word in Sunian's sight. It's like saying an extremely important promise. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, Ro Which Jong word. Chapter 290. Chapter 290 Is the fish bitten? After speaking, Li Baikan kissed Sunian's lips. There is a lot of traffic and feasting outside. In the narrow carriage, the two people's lips and teeth mingled. Sunian couldn't help but feel a little confused. This kiss was very long, very long. After waiting for it to end, Li Baikan said with a smile, actually, I still hope you can be by my side. For example, if you are hanging around me, then if I want to kiss you, I only need to pull you into my arms. Sunian slowly came back to his senses. Li Baikan's kissing skills are really good. If you calculate carefully, it seems that the time he spent kissing was longer than what he did in his previous life. Li Baikan's smile suddenly froze. although he has no memory of his previous life. But he really doesn't. As for so short. But this probably requires practice. Of course, although the time is short, the quality is good. After all, the final result is good. Then I will go out as little as possible in the future. Lee Baiken looked at the smiling little woman in front of him. Although the smile on her face was not sincere, it still made Lee Baiken dazzled. He reached out and hugged the person again. Well, he will prove it to himself sooner or later, don't be in a hurry. Go home. Sunian felt that he had not taken any action in the past few days, so it was time to take action. So I soaked in the bathtub for a long time at night and didn't get out. One of the sure moves of the vicious female supporting role. Fall down while taking a bath. Although she and Lee Baiken were not in the same room, she told the servant that she was going to take a bath tonight and come over in the evening. As for whether Lee Baiken will come, Zhang Taigong has been fishing for 2 or 3 years. She just took a few more baths now, so what's the point? I have to admit that rich people are really nice. For example, this bathtub has a constant temperature, so you don't have to worry about the water cooling down while soaking. I don't know how long it took, but Sunian really fell asleep in the bathtub. And Lee Baiken saw the scene when he walked in. The woman was lying in the bathtub with her head tilted, her long hair scattered randomly, which complemented her fair skin, and Lee Baiken suddenly felt a little hot. Lee Baiken was going out to pour water when he saw the servant preparing to go to Sunian's room, so he asked about it. After hearing Sunian's instructions, he thought for a while and then came. At this moment, Lee Baiken was actually a little lucky to have come. After all, Sunian looked like this, and he didn't want others to see him. Even if the servant was a woman, Lee Baiken was afraid that he would have murderous thoughts. The tip of his nose couldn't help feeling slightly warm. Lee Baiken quickly walked to the bathtub and called softly, "Sunian, Sunian." But even after shouting several times, there was still no movement. Lee Baiken frowned. Although this bathtub has a constant temperature, it is not good for your health to keep soaking in it like this. Immediately, he picked up the bath towel next to him, picked the woman up, wrapped him in the bath towel, hugged the woman and walked outside. Sunian opened his eyes drowsily. Just glanced briefly, and then closed his eyes again. 3 seconds later. Sunian. Is the fish I caught hooked? Lee Baiken, who originally planned to carry the person to the bed at once, stopped. What does it mean? Ha ha ha, if I don't deal with this Lee Baiken today, then my name, Sunian, will be written upside down. When Lee Baiken heard this, he clearly felt the small movements of the little woman in his arms. You must know that Lee Baiken is an absolutely normal adult man. Now he used all his self-control to restrain his desires. End of this chapter.